behind the scenes stuff, get syndicated shows all set up and ready to go, make sure that all the logs are in, the ads are in place, dealing with different clients and making sure that everything is where it needs to be, and just kind of putting out one different fire at a time. And then on the weekends I do anchoring and reporting for WTMJ in Milwaukee. So I do more of the reporting stuff on the weekends and more of the behind the scenes administrative stuff during the week.
Nice, yeah. I work for a company called NEP Group. We do the host broadcasting for a lot of the regional and national networks. The clients range all the time from week to week. Right now we're in football season, so it's NFL. It involves traveling to the different venues across the country, setting up a TV truck, and getting ready to roll for CBS crew to come in and make some TV happen. So, yeah, plugging in wires and pushing buttons.
Well, you guys do such cool things, and now you're back at University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. So, let's bring it back to your time here. So, when did you guys know you wanted to be an RTF major? So, we'll start off with you, Adam.
When did I want to know I was going to be an RTF
Yeah.
major? I kind of knew right when I started that this was the major for me. I was looking at different schools. Oshkosh had a really good reputation for their program, a strong alumni base. And I remember getting a tour from Randall and just being like, wow, this is pretty cool. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of wires. And I knew that really interested me. I like the technical aspect, but it just was cool that you could get involved as a freshman right away versus other programs across the area. You had to wait until upper level. So RTF, I knew right then and there that I wanted to work in TV. I knew that this was a place to get started.
Yeah, I remember when I was here when you started, and you were just right away, more involved than some of the people that have been here forever, jumped right in. So I didn't know what I wanted to do when I first came here, and I went to Taste of Oshkosh, where they have all the different groups set up and everything like that. And two people that are now out of the major, Brandon Kennard being one of them, kind of called me over and told me to just do a weekly sports talk show with them. And so I signed up for that and started doing some play-by-play, and then started doing the station manager stuff with Randall that you do now, and decided that was kind of the little niche I wanted to carve for my career.
Okay.
Kimberly?
So, quick story. So I started my college education wanting to be a special ed teacher, and Fox 11 did a story about my dad. He had a car that was almost 600,000 miles on it, which of course is worthy of a news story. So Fox 11 came to a news story, and then we went and toured the station. And ever since that moment, I just thought that was the coolest thing. It's like something just clicked in me. It's like, yes, I love special ed, but there's something more with television. So that's how I decided to make that jump into TV. And UW Oshkosh was, of course, my #1 choice for that education.
So speaking of education, we'll talk about classes. So you all took a bunch of them to prepare yourself for the places you are now. So what were some of the most valuable classes that you guys took here at UWO? So we'll start with you, Adam.
All right. I was kind of chatting with a few students earlier about this. I know the curriculum's changed since I was a student, but there were two that really stood out to me. Justine Stokes' studio production class. That one was really good for me because I got to produce my own TV show. You realize all the facets when you're the sole producer for that. And also getting to work on other people's show. You get to see their creative skills and kind of collaborate. And then I really liked Andy Smock's, it was an outgoing career prep class. I really got my whole entire portfolio ready. And that was really important for me because you do a lot of work as a student, and I was kind of sharing this advice, is it's important to make sure you can present that to someone and say, yeah, these are all the accomplishments I made. And Randall encouraged us to keep a list going of all the things we did and the awards we received. And that really helped. It was kind of a nice course to get me ready to sell myself to the employer, so to speak, of like, this is why you should hire me.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so I started with Randall's, I don't know what it is now, but it was 120 then.
Still 120.
Intro to radio class, and really liked that. My favorite class that I took was the capstone class, when you just got a recorder and went out and you had to do your own long-form story. I did mine on suicide prevention, and that one was about 15 minutes, so it gives you a little more time to put a piece together than you would just with normal radio time. And then I was also a journalism minor, so a lot of the classes I took there really helped me. And later on in my professional life, writing is the bedrock of any sort of broadcast job. And so learning how to write AP style and have it hammered into you was really, really beneficial to me. And so all of the editing and writing and reporting that I did through the journalism minor really, really, really helped set me apart from other candidates when it came time to get a job.
Kimberly, what about
Yeah,
you?
I think for me, every class in some capacity helped me become the person I am today. There was never a class that was like, why did I bother taking it? Because everything, I was gaining so much knowledge from each class I took. So I think collectively as a whole, all those classes really shaped me into the person I am today.
Okay. Well, in the class you did projects. So Adam, you mentioned that you had to create a TV show. Do you remember which one you did?
Yeah, it was Tech Talk, I believe was the name of it. And it goes kind of like technology in review. It was just, it was like a topical type of studio production.
Oh, there we go. So that was a class project. So did you do any other class projects that you think were beneficial to where you guys are today?
Yeah, it's not always about projects, too. I mean, just the hands-on stuff, the opportunities that we got. I remember Adam and I one time got to call a hockey game off campus at the YMCA just because we wanted to try it out. And so we had all these people there, and Adam and I were like behind one of the goalposts almost and trying to look off high school stat sheets and stuff we had written down. And it's not a project, but it's something that you never got to do before, and I guess it kind of is a project.
It was a different type of project.
Yeah, all of the different off-campus experiences that we got to do, I think, were the things that stick out in my mind. The people you worked with, and I mean, talk about team building. The fires you got to put out on a minute-to-minute basis, and you got producers in your ear talking, and you're trying to talk to each other, and those are the ones that stick out for me.
Yeah, I think Alex hit right on the head when you talked about the hands-on experience, because that's really where I flourished. I feel like learning from a textbook is great, but you guys had the advantage here at UW-Oshkosh, having your own TV station, your own capabilities here to produce shows. That, for me, is really what set this school apart and my education here apart.
So, I mean, that kind of leads into the next question. Adam, did you want to?
Oh, no, I was just going to expand on it and just say that, I think the projects were a really good way to get the fundamentals down, and then your extracurriculars where you really built off of that. Like the studio production class was really good to try some things out, but Justine Braun, I know somewhere out here, she's another alumni that we produced a sitcom together, and that was just an awesome experience to be able to build a set and try out a new workflow, with really, it was a big risk in the sense that we didn't know how it was turning out, but at the same time, there were no consequences if you figure it out as you go, and don't be afraid of failure because you learn from that too. So yeah.
Well, that leads into kind of my next question here about outside involvement, especially in the RTF program. So were you guys all involved in WRST or Titan TV in some capacity?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we did all of them.
Yeah, you were really involved in both. But
yeah. So, do you think that helped you out in your career now?
Yeah, definitely. So, my senior year, I was the program director at WRST. I just helped out. I didn't have any role at Titan TV. Just kind of like floated around and helped out people. Wrote for the Advanced Titan. Worked for WOSH, the AM news station. That was out by Interstate 41, and wrote for the Oshkosh Independent for one of my journalism classes. And so you just kind of got to balance everything like that. And the cool thing is when you get to the latter stages of college and you know what you want to do, the professors are more willing to work with you, and you're doing stuff that'll advance your major and your career. And so getting involved with those, everybody realized, was the most important thing in getting a real-world hands-on experience.
All right, well, I'm glad you guys remember your experiences here at UWO, but we have a little surprise for you guys, okay?
Oh, boy.
You guys ready for this? All right, take a look at this.
Well, Facebook team isn't exactly tiny. By the end of 2008, they said that they hope to have 800 employees, but running 2 websites that run the same program differently is probably just a pain in the neck. Zuckerberg claims that he is not offended by the new Facebook protesting groups, and he says that even if someone is joining a group to express things he or she does not like about the new design, those people are giving Zuckerberg and his employees important feedback.
We see a flag come in here, and it looks like it's going to be a false start against the Titans, so they're going to move back deeper inside their own 30-yard line to kick this ball back to the Warhawks.
And that's one of the mental mistakes that you can't have against the #1 team in the nation. You're a 3-3 football team. If you're trying to win against a Whitewater defense and a Whitewater team as a whole, you're going to see nothing happening.
Very interesting. We see an entirely different punt unit come out onto the field for the Warhawks. It looks like they're going to try and block this one. And they've got 2 guys set back to return in the backfield.
Hello and welcome to Web Famous, a show where we take a look at popular viral videos, learn some history about social media trends, and even play a game or two. I'm your host, Adam Steinbach, and this week we're going to start off with some viral videos that have become popular on YouTube. Gaining thousands or even millions of views in some cases, these videos range from gut-busting hilarious to downright adorable. That's gut-busting hilarious.
So we got to see your work, your TV show. So did that bring back memories, guys? Good
Certainly
memories?
did, yeah.
So let's switch gears here. So some of you guys were on the executive boards here at Titan TV and WRST. So what aspects of serving on those executive boards helped you in your past or current jobs? So Kimberly, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so coming as a transfer, I was a transfer student, so I was just here my junior and senior years at UW-Oshkosh, and just kind of got my feet wet from the beginning as like a anchor position or reporter position, then moved up to news director here at Titan TV. But really just a great way to get my feet wet, but yet stay committed to the station and see it from like a little position being a reporter to all the way to news director, and just my dedication, my commitment to help it succeed, as well as helping my own education succeed too. As far as helping my current position, just working as a team to promote the TV station that I love, whether it be Titan TV News back then or Fox 11 now. Just working together as a team and being a part of something greater than yourself is pretty cool.
I agree with that. Or Alex, what do you
Yeah,
think?
that was the big thing for me. I don't know about you with being station manager, but I didn't realize how much work it was when I took it on. And then, And then you're all of a sudden it's like 11 o'clock at night, and you and Randall are working on a budget that you have to go submit line for line to OSA, and you have to lead meetings every 2 weeks with people that are your friends and roommates, but also technically you have to put a plan together and lead a team and not boss people around because they're not going to listen to you. You got to figure out what makes people work and what makes everyone work together. And teaches you a lot about leadership to be on those boards and how to manage a team of your peers and get things done. But it also teaches you when to take a back seat at times when somebody else has a good idea or wants to run with something, to kind of learn that give and take, which is probably the most important thing I took away from it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I look at my job now, and people come to you as an engineer with their problems. They never come to you and say, this is working. So as an executive staff member was telling on a similar, you had to get creative solutions to complex problems, whether it's motivating people to work, which I found pizza to be the biggest motivator of all students, but it was really, the skills you learn as, working within the Titan TVE board was where I was most involved, really translates into into my current job and what I'm doing now as far as how do we figure out this problem, whether it be personnel or technologically, what are we able to do here for solutions, so.
Right. Were there any opportunities that you guys missed or didn't take advantage of that you wish you would have here at UWO?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wish I had been more involved in the TV side of things, but I kind of had a lot going on, so I didn't have that much free time. I was glad to jump in on the projects where I could, but I wish I had been more part of the regularly structured stuff that was going on, I guess.
Yeah, you were always a solid guarantee for on air for us. I remember you were pretty involved. Right?
Yeah, I would do remotes. I wasn't in studio a lot,
True.
so I didn't get to learn how to run a camera and do these other things that you learn in class, but you kind of forget about without doing repetitive practice. So I guess that would be my main thing.
I would say, I think we talked about this a little bit with a couple of students. Someone asked this question, and I was looking back. I'm like, I don't think there's enough time in the day to do things that if anything, I wish I had more time, because there were so many opportunities here, and I was kind of sharing this, and looking back, I'm so glad that I got to do all of these cool things, but just don't take it for granted, because graduation hits you before you know it, and then you're out there and you have budgets and clients' expectations and timelines, and you don't have the necessary liberties and freedoms that you do to kind of try new things and really explore as a student here. So I don't really have any regrets. It's just, if anything, that I could have done more,
Yeah, like Adam was saying, your time here is so limited, so make the most of it. Make every day count. It just goes by way too fast.
So I think this is a good question for everyone out here in our audience and even streaming online or on TV. How important is it to be involved in RTF student productions and organizations?
Yeah.
Is it really important?
It's so important. I can't stress that enough. Having a college degree is wonderful, but I think as an employer, they're going to say, well, what is your experience? What technology are you proficient with? What editing system do you like to use? Do you know how to use? I feel like that speaks volumes, as opposed to just having a certificate that has your name in cursive on it. So for me, get involved, whether it be here at the TV station, through internships. Just gain as much knowledge as you can, as much, just programs as you can. Just never stop learning to help your career.
Yeah, and that'll give you resources that you'll use for the rest of your life. I still am in constant contact with professors that I had in both RTF and journalism if I'm doing a story and there are some legality questions, or if people don't like the story and they threaten to sue or something like that, you have to be able to use those resources to reach out. And I wouldn't have had those resources if I didn't show an active interest in it when I was here, because those resources will still be here and you can still tap into them, but if you don't use them, they might go away.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I was kind of thinking about this earlier. A couple weeks ago, actually, we were just having a conversation, getting ready for football, and the technical director was making small talk with me and my engineer in charge, and we were all talking about our education and where we came from. And don't get me wrong, your formal education is very important, but what we had all agreed on is that getting a education at a smaller school that's much more hands-on was way more valuable for us in the long run, because we're able to get that real-world experience. Each one of us had talked, and it was great because everyone came to the conclusion that there's some really good big schools out there that have really great programs. But Oshkosh is this hidden gem here that has all the facilities that you would need for, a studio show, working out in the sports, remote production, radio, film. You got it all. So really, taking advantage of that and using that in the real world, it does make a big difference.
I just want to interject with a quick story, and I know Justine will appreciate this because I've said it before and she likes it. But so when I was working here, we had 2 editing systems. We had Final Cut and then Avid. And I love Final Cut. That was my baby. And Justine said, no, try Avid. I'm like, nobody uses Avid in the real world. Why would I waste my time? Flash forward a few months where I'm at Fox 11, and of course they use Avid. So then I said to Justine, I should have listened to you. So the things that you're using here in this campus, those are the things that we're using in the real world. So you guys have an edge and a head start to learn those programs and to be proficient with them already. So take advantage of those opportunities here, because you're going to see them repeat in your career later in life.
Yeah, I agree with that. Avid's always a diva, always. But so I know you mentioned internships earlier, and they're a fantastic way to get an idea of what your job's going to be like when you get out of here. So let's switch over to Adam here. You were interned at Mindpool Live in Milwaukee. So how did that experience help you in the long run?
Yeah, it was my junior year, and I was really looking for internships, and a girl named Kelly Michaels was a year ahead of me, and I just said, hey, I heard your uncle owns this production company called Mindpool, and they do Summerfest. That's pretty cool. And it panned out that I was able to get an internship with them, and they do a lot of music festivals in the area, some corporate clients and stuff. But it was just a really good opportunity to, work in Wisconsin, get that hands-on experience, and realize that the things you're learning here do apply. The technology you use here is the same as what they're using in the real world. And also to kind of get that confidence to take that next step. And in my case, it turned into employment after graduation. So it was a really good opportunity. The internships, I think, are incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Alex and Kimberly, did you guys have any internships at all?
I had 2 internships. I had a radio station, a Cub Radio in Manitowoc, my hometown, and then I also did an internship here at Oshkosh for the City Hall. I'm working with their media department. And both places, they said to me, they're like, we'd love to offer you a position, after you graduate, but we don't have anything available. Can you wait? And I was like, I don't want to wait. So I'm glad I didn't. It would have been a great opportunity for me, but don't be afraid to just keep pressing forward.
Do you feel it helped you, though, get to your position now?
Absolutely, yes. Because, I got to use the more technology and more of the hands-on and just establish relationships and networking within the industry as a career base. It was, very invaluable.
Yeah. So, Alex, what about you?
Yeah, so I interned at WTMJ AM my junior year. I interned in the sports department. I was way more into sports back then than I was news. And Randall pulled me aside and said, hey, there's this internship. It's unpaid, but you should check it out. The guy who was running the internship coordination, Greg Matzig, he had also gone here and worked at WRST. And the guy who ran the whole sports department, Doug Russell, also had gone here and went to WRST. So that was a nice in there. You don't realize how many people in the industry, especially in the state, but everywhere, have gone here and gone through this program. So that was a nice in. And then when I graduated college, a guy that I had met through that job called me up and said, hey, there's this job out in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, but if you're willing to go right now, they'll give you salary, benefits, everything right out of college. So I went, and if I hadn't gone to that unpaid internship my junior year, never would have met that guy, never would have gone out there, and never would have ended up back at TMJ in a paid role now.
So you would say the networking part of it was the most important that helped you get your jobs, right?
Yeah, it was just doing my job. I didn't go out of my way to, hey, I'm the intern, can you show me around? But it was a producer who was working on one of the Brewers Extra Innings shows, and I stayed with him. It was a game against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It didn't even start till 9 p.m., so it didn't end until midnight, 1 a.m. Then you got to take all the drunk callers afterwards in the post-game show. No one's sober at that time. And I stayed the whole time with them and just wanted to learn everything I could. Didn't poke and prod him, but just hung out and learned the ropes. And so when they asked him, do you know someone who can take this job, I was the first person he called because I had just been there and he knew that I was a hard worker. So it was networking, but it was more just being around and learning and not being overbearing, show me this, but being proactive and kind of teaching yourself while other people are around.
Yeah, okay, I like that. Yeah. So let's talk about employers and how you got hired. So what do you think employers most focus on, when they read resumes that you give to them? Like, what are they really looking for?
Well, I think I had the advantage working at Fox 11 because our assistant news director is a UWO alum. So it's kind of the running joke in the newsroom that he only hires UW-Oshkosh alums too. But I think he was very impressed with my hands-on experience, with my internships, with the work I did for WRST as well as Titan TV News and other programs on TV 11, or I'm sorry, on Titan TV. So just that hands-on beyond the classroom. Like, yes, your classroom learning is important, but I took it to another level with the hands-on. So I think collectively that really helped on the resume.
Yeah.
I think it's twofold. I think it's what you can put down on paper, what you've done, right? Any internship that you've done, any awards that you've won through here, things that will make you look good. But then it's also what you talked about before, those capstone classes when they kind of teach you how to do resumes and compile your work together on a reel. That's really important because you're going to go to a potential employer and they're going to say, let me see some of your work. And you're going to say, I know I did it, but I don't know where to get to it. And having that all right there, able to show them right away, it's extremely professional. And that was one of the things that really helped me get my first job.
I couldn't agree more. I know that one of the things that stood out to my employer was when I interviewed, I brought up the fact that I was part of the upgrades for both the field kit for Titan TV and both the studio kit as well. And they talked about, okay, well, explain your role. And it was one of those quiz questions, like anyone can put that on there. Anyone can write this down. But talk about the capacity that you were able to help in. And so, back to Randall's sheet of just everything that you did, I said, all right, yeah, this is the time that we submitted the paperwork. This is what I did this summer. I hung out with the engineers, ate my lunch with them, and we talked and integrated. And so that type of, not necessarily just writing your name down and saying, yeah, I did this, but being able to give some tangible evidence of what you did to contribute to your productions or to your work, I think really sets you apart.
Well, and you said, having a list of things that you've done. So how big was that, at the end of your time here at UW-Oshkosh, if you could put a number on it?
Boy, I don't know about a number on it. I started kind of just doing the larger ticket items, but it's amazing when you go to that call for crew board out there, or you go over to WRST or Film Society, and you start putting your name down. It's easy to fill up and get that experience, and the more you do, the more you learn, the better you get. I mean, I think the repetition and the kind of constantly, critiquing and improving upon it, it makes you so much better, and then you're able to all of a sudden at the end of your 4 years, you go, wow, like I have this huge reel or resume and a list of accomplishments. It's it's not like it's something that I think you have to really work that hard at, as long as you want to keep growing.
Yeah.
And it's also jumping off points too for any sort of job you go into. You're looking for something to set yourself apart. So I mentioned the hockey game that Adam and I called. Wasn't a usual thing, obviously, and we're not going to go be the next Doc Emmerich in the NHL, but it taught us how to set up at a place we'd never been before, help run the remote while calling it, and then afterwards, that was something pretty cool. That's something that you could say in an interview that's, oh yeah, by the way, I did this. What? How did that work? And you can kind of talk about your experiences and things you've done and show and demonstrate that you've done things without having to put them in some sort of list on a resume that you're judged numerically against other people. It gives you a jumping off point, something interesting that you've done that other people haven't, that allows you to kind of open the door and work your way in.
And don't be afraid. I have to be careful how I say this. So yes, have a dream and a goal, but don't be afraid to take a lower position just to get your feet wet, your feet in the door. For me, I actually started at Fox on part-time. I was there for a month part-time, and the full-time position opened up. And I took my boss off to the side, and I said, what do you think are the chances that I can get that now vacant full-time position? And I said, I've only been here a month. Like, what's my chance? And he said, well, do you want it? I said, yeah. He's like, you have it. We see how you are as a part-time employee, that we know we want you as a full-time employee. So those steps are what helped me get to where I am today. So don't be afraid, like I said, just to get your feet wet, just get your foot in the door, and then show them what you're made of. Because if they see something in you, they're going to want to keep you, and they'll make that path to make sure you stay in their company.
That's a good message. I heard, Alex, you talked about interviewing a little bit. What are some of the big things that are important when you're doing an interview for like a media, job?
Being personable is a big one. So when I go into any sort of meeting, whether it's with my current boss, whether it is for a prospective interview, I like to I'll write things down. I'll type something up beforehand and give one to whoever I'm meeting with and one to myself, just so that things don't get off track. I do it more than anybody. You lose train of your thought, and then you leave the meeting, and it's like, oh, I forgot to say that. I worked at a summer camp out in Maine in the summers when I was a college student. That's something interesting. That's not something every student does. So I'd throw that on the resume knowing it had nothing to do with the radio job, but maybe their kid goes to sleepaway camp. Maybe they went to a camp, or maybe they know someone. It's something different. They can say, who did you meet out there? What did you do? It's different points that make you more of a person instead of just a candidate. Anything you can do to separate yourself from the pack, being calm and collective, personable, any sort of jumping off points you have on your resume, because you need to be confident enough to go in there and say, my work speaks for itself, my resume speaks for itself, and I'm willing to expand on that if you need me to. But they're looking to hire people. Employers want to know that the person they're bringing in, they're not going to have to do this again in 6 months because you're not going to work out for them. They want to know that the person they're hiring is a good employee, a good worker, someone that's going to not kind of screw the company over. And so being personable and demonstrating that you have those qualities and capabilities, I find to be the most important thing when I go into an interview or just any sort of meeting with higher-ups in the company.
Yeah, just a quick note. I remember my interview. There's a lot of nerves running high, especially for your first job interview. You're like, I need to just get a job, please. And I was pretty stressed. I was out in Pittsburgh, and this company was like the big one that I wanted. And I made a list of questions because I'm like, all right, I want to show them that I care about the company. And it was a fun point for me to finally flip the table around and say, all right, now it's my turn. Let me ask a couple of questions. And for them, it was like, oh, wow, this guy, he's invested, he cares, he wants to ask us questions. He's genuinely, he's not just here trying to get a gig. Like he wants this to make a career out of this. So that was something I would recommend too is, write down your thoughts like you mentioned so you don't, when you get, into a certain moment, you can go back to your bullet points. But also have a few questions for that employer and do your research ahead of time. It really pays off.
Yeah, it's great advice from both the guys. I would just add, also, if you're involved in the community as a leadership role, like for me, I'm involved in my church and the parish council, so I put that on there because they want to see that you're invested not only in the company, but in the community, because that's the community that they're serving. So if you volunteer, if you, like I said, are involved with other extracurricular activities as a leadership position, show that, because that shows that you're a well-rounded individual beyond just being their employee.
Were there any other opportunities you guys had out in the community outside of college that helped you guys in your careers at all? Think about it.
What do you mean in terms of extra jobs that we had outside?
Extra jobs or any volunteer, anything in that sense?
I did a lot of my volunteer work in high school trying to get into college, doing the NHS thing. No, pretty much almost all of my free time in college was dedicated towards extracurricular activities here or paid part-time jobs that were in the same field outside of this, something involved with this. When you get towards your junior and senior year, those are really precious moments that you're still on school time, but you're not quite having to pay those student loans back yet, and you got some time to work it out. And so I would really encourage you to take advantage of that. And if you have free time, find something to fill that with, something that can pad your resume and set you apart.
Yeah, I think that your time here is really gearing you up for your career, and if you can volunteer, that's awesome. If you get a good part-time job, I remember my time was it was cram-packed. I look at that calendar, I archived it just to look at it because it was full of events every single day. But you got to pay the bills, you got to have a job, but it's really important to make sure you're trying to get yourself ready for that next step and doing whatever you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit to networking tools that you can use. So you guys have heard of LinkedIn, obviously. Oh, yeah. Have you ever used those tools like LinkedIn or maybe even the RTF Facebook group to connect with other people, in the industry at all?
Well, I was fortunate that right after I graduated, I was hired at Fox 7. So I guess I never really went through the process of reaching out for jobs, because it was just one was right there, and I was fortunate that way. I do kind of stay up to date with the Facebook alumni group just to see, RTF, what's going on and everything, just to kind of keep up to date and, just feel connected to them. So.
Yeah, I think physical networking events are important like this. Everybody here came out to it. They had a reason to come out to it. And the physical networking is much more important than what you do online. What you do online is still very important, obviously, and people still use LinkedIn and things like that, but I personally have not used LinkedIn in my profession. It's when you go to an interview site and there's another journalist there, or when you go to do something, or you go to some of the awards events we used to attend here at UW Oshkosh, and you meet all these different people and employers and collect business cards. And that does make a difference, meeting someone face to face. So taking advantage of every single opportunity like that, I would say, is also very, very important.
I've got an interesting story, and I got my job required me to move out to Pittsburgh for 2 years. That's where the company's headquarters is. So I didn't have the luxury of, being able to. The networking events here were really limited. Like I was going to be. There's not a lot of remote TV that happens in Wisconsin. I mean, the Packers and stuff, obviously, and Brewers. But the headquarters was out in Pittsburgh. So I remember Tyler Ignarski, who now works here, had said, you should check out this company. That's when I found out about NEP. And I did some research on their website, and I saw, this guy runs the apprenticeship program. And then I'm like, copy, paste in LinkedIn. Let me find his profile. Okay, we'll connect. And I just shot him a quick text or a message. I said, hey, I'm really interested in this apprenticeship program that you guys offer. If you could keep me in mind for that when the application rolls around. And he said, thanks for reaching out. March it opens up. We'd love to see your name on the application list. And then, that I think really helped me get my phone interview, and then later my in-person interview, was just kind of reaching out and being proactive. If you can do anything, face-to-face is by far, I think, the best, right? But if you're looking for a gig out on the West Coast or New York, wherever, you can really use those tools. LinkedIn, for me, ended up really helping me in a lot of ways, and I've continued to network with other clients and people in my company through that way.
Absolutely. So, what's the most valuable piece of advice that you can give to anyone trying to land their first job in the industry?
I guess
so
I would say be open and be flexible. I didn't see myself moving to South Dakota 3 months after graduating here, but life comes at you pretty fast sometimes, and you just kind of got to be able to roll with the punches. I had a woman that I've been dating for 4 years at the time, and she was not very pleased with me at that point in time, but I was like, look, if this is the career that I want to go into, you have to start anywhere that you get a chance. And luckily enough, I was able to, after a couple of years, pull some levers and make it back to Wisconsin. But man, right out of the gate, you have to be flexible in where you're going to work and what you're going to do, and always continue working towards your next job, but you got to have a job to get to that next one.
I think for me, the best advice I can give is don't stop learning. Your time in the classroom, it doesn't end. So when you get out into the real world and you have a career, don't stop learning. For example, for me at the Fox 11 TV station, we offer training for meteorologists for what to do in the event of breaking news and severe weather coverage. And so I go to those meetings. I don't really have much to do with them, but I want to learn more. If there's an editing meeting, I'm going to that because I want to help my editing skills. So don't stop learning, even if it's not maybe in your department or your expertise. Be open to those opportunities, because that's what makes you a team player. So if somebody needs help, you can assist them, because you're all part of a team collectively to help that company. So just, like I said, don't stop learning. Keep pressing forward. Keep learning as you go on.
Keep learning, and don't give up either. You're going to get, if you're like me, you're going to get plenty of rejection letters before you get your acceptance, but it's the law of averages. The more you get rejected, you're bound to get an acceptance letter. And the fact of the matter is, there's tons of people out there applying for jobs from all different backgrounds, but you don't know until you put yourself out there, and don't get discouraged by it. I think all of us have received our rejection letters, and eventually you get to where you want to be, and sometimes that path is a little bit more windy than you'd imagine. But for me, it was, I applied for this job in March. I didn't hear back from them until June. I was already ready to look at other places, and then finally July interviewed, and then November started. But just really make sure you keep pushing forward, keep your head up high, and if you work hard enough, you're going to get that opportunity, And like you said, keep growing. Don't, get your foot in the door, because you never know where that's going to lead you.
Yeah. So in a few moments, we're going to start taking questions from our studio audience. So if anyone out here has a question for the panel or a specific panelist, please head over to the microphone over here. But while we wait for our first audience question, so let's talk about your areas of expertise. So what has each of you found to be the most exciting or rewarding part of your job? So Kimberly, let's start with you.
Yeah, so recently, as you mentioned in the introduction, I completed a 65th anniversary special looking back at the station's 65 years. And to me, that was instrumental, just learning about my company and our importance in the community, and just how passionate these people are for 65 years and beyond, and hopefully another 65 years and then some. So I it's great just to be part of this community and to see that, developed throughout the years?
I've got a really specific answer. So when I started at WMDC, it was just a small Mayville radio station that told me to do news. A month after I get there, the police chief kicked out of town and the city gets served with a search warrant. Turns out the guy was falsifying records, trying to help. Long story. Anyways, so he gets ousted. The Police and Fire Commission wants to promote the assistant guy to become the head chief. He wasn't doing anything dirty. He was a great guy. And the mayor of the town doesn't want it. Says, no, not going to happen, which is not his choice. It's the Police and Fire Commission's. And he wrote a really shady, illegal contract under the table, offered it to the chief, and the chief said no. And so there was this big standoff, and nobody in the city knew what was going to be happening. And so I started getting these documents, the contract that had been offered to him, memos that were being sent back and forth that uncovered more corruption between members of the board and police officers. And I worked with some old professors that were here and published a lot of those reports. Some people lost their jobs, some people got other jobs because of it, and we won our first WBA award in station history. It'd been around for about 25 years. And so that's always something that I've kind of hung my hat on a little bit, and just doesn't matter what size of the place you're working at, doesn't matter where you are. If there's a story that needs to be told and you're willing to go out there and do it, then people will, it's going to move the needle at some point, and it kind of gives you, feels good about what you do.
Definitely. That's awesome, man. Congrats. At our company, we have a saying: you can never tell them no. For the clients, if they ask you something, you always have to find a way. In my intro, they had kind of mentioned that we got to go over to Saudi to do the greatest Royal Rumble with WWE, and that was a really unique experience. But one of the challenging things about putting a show on in the middle of a desert where TV isn't that popular was trying to come up with some creative technical solutions. One of the producers wanted to be able to time the matches, and he had a remote in the States that he would use that he would push and stop the clock. He could write the time code down, start it again, and he would time his matches that way. Well, we didn't have the remote, and it was something that as a company, we were ready to say, hey, look, you're going to have to kind of deal with that. Well, we're in Saudi. And I remember I had a flashlight in my bag, and I was like, well, that's a toggle button. And so it was me and another engineer. We were competing against each other to find the best solution. But we drilled a hole through the flashlight, and we were able to wire it up, and that was our remote for the clock. And so that was a unique opportunity to kind of find a creative technical solution. And he looked at it like, what is this thing? This taped up, like drilled up remote or flashlight. And we ended up loving it. So that was kind of a unique opportunity for.
Cool opportunity is always good.
Yeah.
So Kimberly, you started out as a newsroom editor.
I did.
So before becoming the creative services producer, can you tell us how someone moves up in your industry like you did?
Sure. So there is a little bit of turnover in the company. So just kind of being abreast of what's happening and who's leaving and who may be coming or who isn't coming, and the position will be open. So just, I guess if you want something, just go after. Talk to your supervisor. Say, hey, I see there's a job posting. What does that entail? I know for my creative services producer position, when the woman was about to leave, I job shadowed her for a day because I didn't really know what the job entailed. So I got to see hands-on what she did, and I found out later that of all the people that applied for that position as well, I was the only one that took the time to really learn about it. And that really spoke volumes to my current boss now. So just, get your feet wet. Don't, how can I say this? Just keep pressing forward. If you want the job, you'll get it. Go after it.
So always
and just
take
be
the
persistent.
opportunities.
Take the opportunity. That's perfect. Yes.
Yes. Well, you, Alex. You over the course of the year, you've been involved in a lot of different innovative areas. What do you recommend for keeping up with the latest technology?
That's a good question. You've got to do a lot of it yourself. A lot of the ways that I learn about it is when something breaks and you have to put out a fire and you have to figure out a way around something. Not drilling holes in flashlights and turning them into remote controls. Not that big. But personal interest is a lot of it. You know what I mean? I am very aware that the industry is always changing, and I don't ever want to be on the outside looking in when the industry changes and takes another curve. And so I think that's very important, is just if it's something that you know you want to do for your career, put some time into it and take an interest in it, because I've seen what it's like when the industry passes you up, and it's not pretty. So you always want to stay involved.
Yeah, because now there's podcasting with radio and everything like that.
Well, absolutely, but you can't just tweet out a link to a podcast. Not everyone scrolling through Twitter wants to listen to a 50-minute show, and you know all about that.
Yep.
It's all about the way you can catch people's attention spans and put different clips out there of something that you do that might bring them in to do more, and supplementing everything you're doing on the air, trying to bring in other listeners that might not be in your on-air community that want to consume the product that you put out there. So it's definitely just kind of experimentation, and that's all I can say.
What about you, Adam? That's also a really good question for you. Keeping up with the latest technology and stuff like that. How does that go about in your career?
You spend a lot of time reading on Reddit. There's a lot of organizations in the engineering field too that release publications, but you do have to stay well read, and self-interest is, if you want to learn, the materials that are out there is how far you're willing to push yourself. But it is very important. We're actually coming up on the point of, we made the transition in the industry from analog to digital, and now we're moving to a new standard of broadcasting, and our company is kind of taking that under right now. But you figuring out those things as you go, and a lot of it is, they don't know yet what's going to happen. How are we going to do this? So it's an exciting time, but you have to work for it, and those who are willing to do that are the ones you're going to see opportunities come for you down the road.
Absolutely.
I think it's mainly just big about keeping the boat afloat. I mean, you never know. Stuff's changing around you, and it seems like every day, because you're still doing the same thing every day, and so you're not exactly aware to it. But really staying alert and focused and doing your job is the best way that you can get ahead, I think.
And don't put your blinders on. Don't go into it thinking, this is my job, not only my job.
Yeah.
You're there as a team, as I said earlier. So don't be afraid to maybe sidestep and try something, because you never know if that might lead to another path. So just be open to all those possibilities.
All right. Well, now we have our questions here from our students, so let's go on to our first one here.
Hi, I'm Marissa. So my question for y'all is, when you began to get into your career, looking back at your college experience, what is one skill that you wish you would have gained to help you now?
Wish that I would have gained.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess for me, and it's really specific, but interviewing, I was more of, I did stuff around here really well, but I wasn't very good at going out into somewhere and asking a random person a question about what was happening in the world. And I mean, for a lot of different jobs, especially in journalism, that is your job. You have to go out there and ask people what's going on. And I started to get around to it when there was when we were here, there was the ricin thing down the street, and then they had the blocks blocked off. And so I had to get out and start asking people what was going on, and that gave me a taste of it. But interviewing, personal skills, one-on-one, being able to listen to someone's answer, develop a follow-up question, develop an interest in what they're talking about is something I wish I had developed earlier on.
I think for me, as I mentioned earlier with the AVID program, just being open-minded, learning more about the technology here, and don't say, oh yeah, I won't need that. But taking the time to learn the technology here more, so then when you get into the real world, it'll be like second nature for you.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've really realized is I always wanted to learn as much as I could in a short amount of time span that I had, but kind of slowing down and really honing in one thing before you jump onto the next one. I was kind of like Energizer Bunny running around, and probably could have used a lesson in patience and just, I'm slowly getting there.
It was much appreciated from the rest of us. We do like 5 things at once.
Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
So you had stressed before that every moment of free time in this major should be devoted to something that makes your resume and make yourself stand out later. So is the message that we should get, like, maybe cut out, like, the clubs that don't matter that much afterwards, or do we still have the ability to maybe have free time for hobbies?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to have the other extracurriculars. We were kind of chatting before, but it's all of those things make you a more well-rounded individual. Yes, you should be totally motivated and using every opportunity that you have to make yourself the best possible candidate for your career. But you also want to make sure that you're not ruling out certain things, that one, you become burned out, and two, that you lose those other opportunities, because those do help you as well. It's not just Titan TV. I think I know all of us were involved in multiple facets within either the community or on campus life, and so that's at least what I.
It's a balance,
yes.
I think, of finding what will help you as a career and what will help you as a person. And they are, of course, interchangeable, and they do overlap. But you have to enjoy your time as a student, and remember, you are still a student, and you're still learning as the process. And yes, it's hard to be in that moment, but also look ahead to help your career. So like I said, it's that finding that balance to kind of juggle everything.
Yeah, I was someone, when I lived off campus, I lived with 4 or 5 other people, and I don't think any of us had the same major. Maybe Tony was communications. So, but that kind of forced you to get outside your comfort bubble a little bit, not just stay in those Titan TV and WRST cliques that develop amongst the people that are doing all the outside production work, but getting outside your comfort zone and doing more. And that's something I wish I had done a little bit more of when I was here. So yeah, definitely don't cut back on things that you enjoy just because you feel like you have to do something else. It's definitely a balancing act of doing things you enjoy and also picking up things that'll help you further down the line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Not much. I hate to be that one guy that's going to ask a specific panelist, but I'm going to be. So this is specifically for Alex. I'm also working for WRST right now, and I'm just asked the question of how important it is to have a voice reel, especially when it comes to getting a job after college.
Yeah, so voice reels are a little different than they used to be, right? We're not like Randall cutting up actual tape and putting it on the reel, but one of the things that he taught me how to do when we had to do award submissions was via SoundCloud, because that was the only way that some of those places would take award submissions was electronically. So I learned right there how to set up everything. And I think it's important to have, when you're applying for a job, check out some of these sound pieces, but also it's important to just, for yourself, to show what you've done. I mean, we all listen to my wonderful overmodulated college football calls there. It's important to listen back to your own things and get better at them. So it's really simple to upload something to a SoundCloud account, and it keeps everything documented for you, and you can go back and listen through it and update it from time to time. Doesn't need to be this big production with all this, music beds and everything like that. But yeah, some place that you have compiled pieces of your work. Randall helped me do that before I graduated here, and I've never stopped curating and putting all that stuff together. I think it's pretty important.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I think that's a good question for you guys as well, too. How important is it to, kind of showcase your work, online and on social media?
Well, of course it's important. Like, you are proud of what you've done, and of course we've made mistakes too, but remember, we're still students, and that's part of the learning process. So don't be afraid to go for it and just try those things. And if you happen upon something that you're really proud of, show off a little bit. I think it's good to be humble, but it's also good to be proud of who you are and proud of what you've accomplished.
Yeah, definitely. I think Wisconsinites, we tend to be very humble, and it's a trait that we really value, and that's good. It keeps you, very humble. That's important. But make sure you're not underselling yourself either. These people don't know who you are, what you can do. So if you can do something, let them know. And keep track of that stuff. Write up a little narrative. If you worked really hard on a project, tell some details that you wouldn't be able to if you didn't do it. Make sure you can do that fresh while it's in your mind, and really kind of create a package that says like, oh wow, when someone reads this, I want that person to work for me.
Yeah, I think social media is a good way to share your work. I don't take the time to cut up radio hits of what I'm reading on the air and put them online. No one's going to listen to that. But they'll read news blurbs, and so every story that I do, I also put up online as a reader and share it on Facebook. And in a town of not a lot of people, sometimes those stories get 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 impressions, and that's cool. That's something you can measure, that this many people have seen this piece of work that I put out there today to keep the community informed, and it keeps you going because it makes you want to do better.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go on to our next question here.
Hi, I'm Abby. In a couple of years when I graduate, I'm planning on moving away, and I was kind of wondering what difficulties you had with moving away from home, or even the great opportunities you got from it.
Yeah. I'll start. I moved. Dakota.
Oh yeah.
So I moved out to Pittsburgh the fall after my graduation. I didn't know a single soul out there. It was just a job that brought me out there. It's a really, I think, a growing period. Being that I was from Wisconsin, sure, Oshkosh I'd never lived before, but you kind of were familiar with the area, and home wasn't too far away. There, it was at least a plane ticket. So I think, for one, it teaches you a lot about yourself. It's a great opportunity to grow and meet new people. And there's times you're definitely get homesick. But with social media now and a lot of different, there's applications out there for you to meet up with people in different activities and social groups. I didn't have trouble, quickly finding a crew that I got along with. So I think that it's definitely a challenge, but I really encourage people to do it. You can always come back home, get out there for a couple of years and check it out. At the same time, too, I love Wisconsin. I think there's a lot of great things about this state, and I'm happy to be back home, too.
So not everybody is as personable as this man over here that I'm sure everybody's fallen in love with already. And I moved to a place called Sisseton, South Dakota. It was about an hour south of Fargo. The nearest Walmart was 45 minutes away. It was nothing, and I mean nothing. And I wasn't ready. I was not ready when I got to U-Haul and saw the place I was going to be reliving. I was ready to turn and run with my tail between my legs. No apps to meet up with people, nothing like that. You got to be okay with yourself. You find out a lot about yourself living on your own in the middle of nowhere for 2 years. I got a dog. Never had a dog growing up. Never had a dog in my life. Got a dog after a month of being
Needed
out
some
there.
company.
I was so lonely. I
company.
had to do something. And I've had it for 4 years now, so I'm a dog guy now, I guess. I learned that about myself. You learn some things that are new, and you just got to keep rolling in it and stay grounded and just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
I'm going to the next question here.
So as far as maybe when your time here or just as you progress in this industry, what do you think was the most limiting factor in progression, and how do you kind of overcome it?
Limiting factor.
I would say mine was transportation. I didn't have a car on campus here, and so a lot of what I did had to be centered around here. There were friends of ours that went to run TV cameras for the Timber Rattlers. I'm sure they still do things like that. Didn't have a car. I could have hitched a ride or something like that. But so you have to figure stuff out. The furthest job that I got was WRST up by the interstate, and I had to strike deals with my roommates of what I could offer them to be able to use their cars those weeks and still make it to work on time. And so you got money from it. You're able to offer them deals and stuff like that. But yeah, just whatever the limiting factor is, you got to figure out a way around it. You know what I mean? That's just the way. Transportation was the biggest thing for me, and I figured it out. Time's another one, and you figure out how to make all that work. Usually cutting out sleep, but it's all just kind of rolling with it and moving on to the next problem. I guess that's.
Yeah, I was talking to Bill a little bit earlier. It's interesting when you get to like some of the larger shows, they just kind of throw money at the problems and say, oh, you want that? Sure, we'll do it. And it's a different set of issues that you run into. But I think here was, your resource a little bit more limited, so you get really creative. Like, we were kind of chatting about some of the really cool engineering projects he's done here in order to make some of these systems work for you guys. It's pretty cool. But that I think was something that you run into on like a scale at the university level. But then you realize when you get into the workforce, those problems don't go away; they just change. That you're always kind of dealing with certain issues. It's how do you get creative about solving it? So.
Yeah, I think for me, just time management. You had touched on that a little bit, Adam. But just kind of balancing everything and making time for everything, so your other classes aren't failing or neglecting in that respect. Yeah, you don't want to fail any class. But for me, like Spanish was really difficult for me. Yeah. So trying to juggle learning Spanish while also being heavily involved with the TV station, the radio station here. So just, I guess, pressing forward, but being cognizant of not letting anything slip through the cracks.
Okay, what would you say like some good tips for time management then?
Yeah, definitely take time just to breathe, which I know sounds like dumb, but don't think of you're going to change the world this afternoon. It's a gradual progression. So start with small goals that will lead to bigger goals, and don't put too much on your plate all at once, I guess would be the main takeaway.
That's something you got to keep teaching yourself too.
I still am teaching myself
Any time a problem comes up, I'm like, I can solve 6 problems. And it's like, maybe just do the one and then move on to the next one. I find myself constantly having to reteach myself that.
And it's okay to ask others for help. Don't think that you're in it by yourself. You have to do it all yourself. Don't be afraid to reach out to your connections or to your current employers or current classmates and say, hey, what's your advice on this? Or do you mind giving me your opinion on this? You're all there as a team. You're there to help one another succeed, so take advantage of that.
Do you feel it's important to, ask your team for help sometimes when you need it?
Definitely, yeah. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We all aren't perfect, so it's okay to not be perfect in that regard. So definitely take the time to ask for help if you need it, because sometimes you'll find yourself, and I found myself so far deep that you don't know where the sunlight is to see out of the water. You're just so immersed in your work and everything. So definitely take the time to realize, like, this isn't healthy, and I need to get the resources and the help that I need to see the light.
Well, it's been in broadcast, I mean, it's really important because it's better to be the person asking for help than the person that sent something to air incorrectly, and all of a sudden, who's the person who messed up? Yeah, that's me. You don't want to be that person. You'd rather be the person who asks for help ahead of time. Hey, can you show me how to do this so that it doesn't go to air that's messed up? And Same for
Oh
for
yeah.
you.
I mean,
Like a
I've definitely
bigger
been in that
scale.
situation where you're like, I really wish I would have just asked. And it is. It's like, I think when you graduate, at least I put an expectation on myself that I should know everything before I do. And the thing about never stopping learning, like you really have to beat that into yourself, is that you're always going to be learning. I mean, every job that you get into, the moment you stop growing. So kind of getting that into your head. And understanding that you're going to make mistakes along the way. It's okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we're out of time. But I'd like to thank you guys for coming along here and returning to campus. Kimberly, Alex, and Adam, thank you so much. So finally, I want to thank you for joining us live on 90.3 WRST FM Oshkosh and Titan TV. My name is Andrew Hayes, and this has been the 11th annual Radio TV Film Pro Perspectives panel. We'll see you again next year. Thank you very much.